Hey everybody, we are the Jersey Comic Crew, and right now we are talking Darth Vader, the Dark Heart of the Sith arc in the comics, Vader 1 through 6. Craziest stuff imaginable happens. Very sad, very emotional as well. One of the greatest characters of all time. Come on inside and let's talk about it.
Hey guys, you already heard that intro. You see the title, you see that thumbnail. We're talking about Lord Vader. Yes, guys. So Marvel Comics has done a new storyline for Darth Vader. The first arc we're covering right now to tell you what happened in it, why you should pick it up, and why it is so important to Darth Vader as a character. Now, a lot of you guys are maybe apprehensive about getting Darth Vader books or getting Star Wars comics because you feel like you get everything you need to know in the movies. Now, as someone who watches only the movies and I wasn't really into all this other stuff, I gotta tell you, I read Darth Vader issues 1 through 6, and it revolutionized the character for me. So we're gonna have Chris take over. He's gonna tell you the major beats of the story, and your mind's gonna get blown. And then we're gonna talk a little bit about what that has done to the character and what's gonna happen in the next arc.
Yeah, guys, and you definitely want to beware of spoilers if you're planning on picking it
Yes.
up. Spoiler warning, we are going in-depth through all 6 current issues of Darth Vader, Volume 3. And basically it picks up right after The Empire Strikes Back. So if you watch Empire the movie, you can literally pick up Darth Vader and pick up the story between this and Return of the Jedi. And it's canon, and it's amazing. And
Yes.
anyone who reads the comics, we all know that the comics and the books, besides obviously The Mandalorian and TV shows that are coming out, are really picking up the slack with a lot of the movies,
It's
gaps
surprising.
and a lot of gaps.
I gotta say, it's surprising as somebody who, I wasn't this deep into the Star Wars fandom, and I feel like I'm still the quote unquote casual fan.
Mm-hmm.
But guys, you gotta get this book. Go ahead.
It's so good. So, especially Vader, right? It's Vader. He's one of the best villains of all time. So basically we pick off right at the end of Vader chopping Luke's hand off at the end of Empire Strikes Back. Luke denies Vader. He falls into the pit of Cloud City and somehow survives with the Force leading him into the tube.
Mm-hmm.
And Vader's kind of left there with like, really, dude? I just told you I was your dad and you're just going to deny me again. And so Vader, realizing that Luke is his son, accepting that Luke is his son, is also accepting the fact that Palpatine lied to him again.
Yes.
And Palpatine has been lying to him ever since. We have a couple flashbacks in Vader's head as Anakin during the times of him talking to Vader, whether it's stuff you see in episode 3 or private conversations based around, Padme and keeping her alive. And he's starting to realize his own flaws. He's starting to realize that, hey, maybe this is my fault. And maybe this guy is also the reason because he led me down this path and made me believe, because I love this person so much that I could save her. And all I had to do was just basically continue doing what I was doing and she would have been fine.
Yeah, you see it on his journey when you see the flashbacks, Chris.
Oh, it's
and
amazing.
Of him doing all these things, and he's starting to realize like maybe if I just calm down for a second, maybe if I didn't snap and feel like everybody was against me, I might have been.
Maybe I wasn't
okay.
a crazy person,
right? Maybe if I wasn't a monster, right? Like Obi-Wan,
maybe if I wasn't killing younglings.
Yeah, like Obi-Wan comes with Padme at one point, and he's like. You see all this, and even though Vader is an emotionless face, right? It's a mask.
Oh.
You could just see it on his face, I messed up, right?
Yeah.
I messed up.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then we get this overarching story throughout literally these first couple issues of Vader kind of setting out on his own. Like, he's supposed to report back to the Emperor to start his new mission. He's failed to turn Luke Skywalker to the dark side, because if you remember, obviously, in Empire, there's that famous scene, which is the first time we see the Emperor, of Vader kneeling and saying, if he could be turned, he would become a valuable asset.
Exactly.
And the Emperor's like, oh, that'd be amazing. Another Sith, of course. So, but that doesn't happen, obviously. So Vader has technically failed again. So Vader also doubles down and says, you know what, screw you, dude. You've been the hand behind ruining my life as well. He goes on this search for Padme's tomb.
Yeah, to find the truth, right?
To find the truth about how she died. He had no idea, he didn't know. He was being rebuilt in this lab when she passed away and had the twins in episode 3. So he's going on this search for her tomb, trying to almost through the Force, Force sense or some type of Force, telepathy ability to kind of try and replay the step. Yeah, right? Try to replay the steps almost like a Professor Xavier style.
Yep.
And he goes to planet. He revisits Tatooine. He revisits Naboo, where Padme is from, and he ends up finding one of Padme's doubles.
Yeah,
is always with her.
Well, hold on. Before we just nonchalantly say this is Padme's double. It is. But we find that out at the end of the first issue. And Vader was like, this is Padme come back from life. The robot said it. I said it. Like, and it left on a cliffhanger. Like, and
it just left it there.
And then you had to wait, I think, what was it, like a month before the next book?
Yeah, because Vader is a month, not like everything else that's rushed every 2 weeks. So, like, this was the worst.
So we're sitting down and we're like, did Star Wars just break itself? Like, is Padme alive? Like, are we serious? Like, what the just happened?
Did Marvel run out of batteries to recharge it?
I was like, Star Wars doesn't do clones of, like, other people aside from these, like, troopers back in the day.
And emperors.
And emperors, right?
We don't talk about that, though.
So, like, I just couldn't believe. I was like, what? But then we find out in the next issue, the robot does a scan, like, oh, you know, the voice is, like, 0.2 octaves off. Yeah. And, like, she's an inch and a third taller. Like, this isn't her. I'm like, are you serious, robot? Like, that would have been helpful
I thought it was a Force vision. I thought he was, like, in his head seeing this. Because it seemed like he was trying to, like, find her through the Force and trying to find her body through his, like, intense, like, obviously he's still in love with his wife.
And all of his memories were in red, right? So I thought he was, like, projecting a Force vision of what happened, not even a memory. So I can see that. And
I love that the memories were in red because that is Vader's everyday, and right? Like, anger, that is his anger, and that's what he sees through. His lens through the world is this bright red, which I think is also a very subtle hint to kind of the genius behind the Emperor. Like, I'm going to put this red connotation that means rage, that means anger, that means power. That's going to be your visual every day to kind of keep you in focus.
True, because the negative emotions is what the Sith believes in and gives you the most power.
Exactly. So all that anger and hate. So he finds her, and they are she is with kind of the Nabooan faction that used to kind of tail Padme, were her protectors, kind of her secret service per se.
Exactly.
And they find Vader, and they're like, we're searching for basically who killed her. And we are on this hunt for any clues and any findings of, we don't believe she died, this normal way, and we want to find who killed her. So Vader is kind of like almost playing along, right? Like, he is obviously, it's Vader. He's not telling you, he's not talking.
Exactly.
Much. Yeah, everything's mostly monologues. So he's kind of playing along. At the same time, he's replaying stuff and figuring out stuff in his own mind of where she is and things that may have happened.
He's using them for his own personal gain. Like, even the robot saying, you don't do this to Vader because Vader's going to kill you. But then you see Vader act out of character that the robot believes. And we all know this because he's Anakin, right? He was so close to them. They mentioned Anakin so many times.
And they believe Anakin killed her, too.
They did.
At one point. They thought Anakin, like, was the Jedi that turned evil and not only slaughtered younglings, but slaughtered Padme and was the reason that she died. And Vader's just kind of, like, not talking and just like, oh, okay. That's
he's
what
like, all right, keep going.
Yeah. And so he is just kind of, again, still overwhelmingly emotional internally, and still, like, trying to figure out how this happened and why. And he realizes, obviously, that she died having Luke. And that the kids that he thought were dead, obviously he knew she was pregnant. The beginning of episode 3 is, Annie, I'm pregnant. Something wonderful has happened.
Yeah.
And he believes that she died with the baby. Doesn't know anything, which I love that they had nothing about Leia, right? There's no hint of Leia. He thought, oh, she died in childbirth. Luke is alive somehow. He never knew his mother, and this is how my story is continuing in this sad, terrible way.
Exactly.
And then we get to, obviously, some great fight scenes and stuff. That giant Nabooan sea creature.
Yeah, I was going to say, they betrayed him to try to get a giant sea monster. It's like, this is the only thing that can kill you. And, like, the Loch Ness monster comes in.
Damn Loch Ness monster! I gave you 350.
I said 350 to leave the Empire alone. 350.
Stop giving him 350. But yeah, it's a very, very intense scene where it reminded me of Batman Begins, where, like, Bruce hits that bat radar and all the bats come flying in.
Yes.
Same kind of thing. They hit this kind of noise machine that attracts this massive sea creature, and they're like, you were the last person to see her alive, because we got to remember, too, there's a split second where Anakin Skywalker was Darth Vader before he was in the suit.
Yep.
He was named that before, so they're, putting those two lines.
Many people don't remember that, because I forgot that. when I was reading this.
So like halfway through Revenge of the Sith he becomes Darth Vader then.
They call him
even
Vader.
though he still is Anakin Skywalker. But so yeah, that he fights out of it, of course, because he's Vader and he's using the Force.
Strong.
He's way too powerful for any of them. He kills them all and leaves the one that looks exactly like her lookalike alive.
Of course, he can't. He's not going to be able to kill her.
No, and he leaves her alive and is basically like, "Listen, I'm going to continue this search. You can come with me if you want."
Mm-hmm.
And he basically says, "I killed her," which to me was a massive point of not only Star Wars, not only the character of Darth Vader, but Anakin was always someone who deflected.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He was never someone who took responsibility for his actions.
Yep.
He would dwell over his actions. He would feel some sort of way, like when he killed the Sand People in Episode 2 because of his mother.
Mm-hmm.
But he never had to take real responsibility for any of those things. His power kept growing, and he became, he kind of deflected it with the Clone Wars and dealing with other things. And becoming Vader, that anger, that rage, kind of forces him to take hold of, I have to blame myself for a lot of reasons of how I'm living now. Exactly. Why I have no more limbs, why I have no more wife and a normal life. The Jedi are gone because of me and the guy who controls me.
Exactly. He started to, instead of blaming everybody else, right? Yeah. And I thought he was just going to blame the Emperor, but him admitting that he killed Padme, right? Like, he's the reason why. He's owning his own shit, right? He's owning his shit. He's saying, listen, I did this. I need to change this. I need to go back. And then you get that beautiful scene, right, Chris? Like, when he goes to the Emperor, and the Emperor's like, you failed me. Like, at worst, you're a failure. At best, you're a failure. At worst, this is treason.
Yes.
And he starts to attack him.
Yes.
And just destroys him.
And so this last issue, the 6th issue so far, 7 comes out in a couple of weeks, which is why I wanted to talk to you guys about it now before this next arc becomes basically, it's going to be what everyone's talking about, just so you guys know.
Yeah.
And this 6th issue,
at least us here,
But yeah, at least us nerd community people.
Exactly.
And this 6th issue was hard for me to read. I haven't had a comic in a while that was hard emotionally for me to read.
See, for me, it wasn't that hard emotionally, but it's also probably because I don't have that much vested emotional stake in Star Wars and in Vader, right?
Yeah.
It was a great issue, and I was like, oh, I'm feeling for the guy, but I didn't have that reaction that you did.
Well, to me, I think Vader is, personally, and this is just my opinion, I think Vader is the greatest villain, definition of all time. Mm-hmm. This issue really showed the struggle of the character behind the scenes that we never got to see, right?
Vader,
the Emperor
the comics,
is not.
sorry.
Oh no, I'm just saying the Emperor is not just this kind of scary wizard in the background. The dude affects this guy's life 24/7.
What I was going to say, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was going to say was that Vader, throughout the comics, whether it's this volume, which is the third run that they've done with Vader, or a single story, or any of the others in the comics, they've added these layers of complexity to this character, really fleshed him out as a full character. So when you hear people saying Vader's the number one villain, and you think of, oh, Joker, oh, this guy, the reason they're saying it is because they've read all this canon. Remember, this is canon. This is actually happened in the movie world, right? These stories that add layers to these characters that we didn't see before.
Well, yeah.
And like you said, the hold that Palpatine has over him, we saw, I think, in Volume 2 and Volume 1 how strong it was. And in this volume here, I think what really got it to me was seeing that physical representation of the Vader destroying all of his limbs, essentially setting him back to zero. Said, oh, you might have saw the mental game I was playing. Now you see the physical game that I just did to Vader, literally brought him to a shell of a person, so that way he could rebuild himself. Like, he has dominated Vader so well. Yeah. And it's also what's prevented Anakin from coming back to being the hero. Like, that's why it took so long. And that's why he got that redemption arc at the end. It's because he's been struggling this whole time. He wasn't just this mindless monster. And at the end of this issue, Chris, when we see him lying on the ground, that spoke volumes.
Yeah, and you hit it perfectly on those beats, because one of my favorite Star Wars movies is Return of the Jedi, and a lot of people are like, what, Ewoks? And stupid Endor and blah, blah. And I'm like, no, it's because the reason I love that movie so much is because if you take by itself the scenes with Luke Skywalker as he leaves Naboo, the conversation with Leia, telling her that basically he's our father and I have a sister and she's part with the Force, and she's like, I knew it this whole time. I had this kind of sense. Going into that conversation with Vader before the huge climax of the fight, there's a strict line where Luke says to Vader, you know, you are your former self, you've only just forgotten. And Vader, the first time you kind of hear Vader through his, you know, fake voice say, almost emotionally, it's too late for me, son. That is the whole that's the Star Wars story right there. It's this one guy who, no matter how hard he fought and tried, the Emperor always had a one-up on him.
And that happens before this, right?
No, that's after this. That's Return of the Jedi, yeah.
Okay, my bad.
This is after Episode 5, but this, like you said, is showing how much farther down the rabbit hole Vader and the Emperor's relationship goes. So by the time you get to Return, that conflict of, do I attack the Emperor? Because everything he's done to me, including basically redoing Anakin's death and the birth of Vader all over again, crushes his limbs, electrocutes him, throws him back. They take him back to Mustafar without his limbs, without his lightsaber. Throw him back in the fire. His legs catch fire again. And the Emperor literally tells him, if you try to use the Force in rebuilding yourself, I will know, and I will come back here and kill you. I will finish you off. So you have to rebuild yourself.
Here's my thing. We also see that there's a Sith bounty hunter obviously coming after Vader, right? As a challenge. Yes. So, and obviously we see Vader in the rest of the movies. We know he's alive, right? Yeah. So I'm very curious to see how he's going to rebuild himself. Like, is he going to do it mechanically? Is he going to get help from someone? Like, he only has one working arm. Like, I don't know. Like, and without the Force, like, he's just a man with a fire sword, right? Like, he's just, what is he going to, I don't know. Like, I'm very curious to see it.
I'm very curious to see it too. And I think this is going to also solidify this character as one of not only the biggest villains of all time, but one of the strongest just anythings of all time. Like your Gokus, your Supermans, your Homelanders, you know, of just strength upon strength. And just like, why won't you, like Austin Powers, why won't you die? You know, like it's crazy, and it's also heartbreakingly sad for this character.
Well, we're going to get an Iron Man scene in this, right? Like Iron Man stuck in the cave, rebuilding himself. We're going to see that with Anakin, like just doing it with his saber, I guess. I don't know.
And that's what's interesting to me, because Palpatine is he's original Sith, right? He is Sith born and raised. Vader /
He's an OG
Anakin,
Sith.
He's an OG Sith, right? You know, down with OG Sith. Yeah, you know me. And Vader / Anakin is not. Mm-hmm. He was a slave kid who had nothing to do with this wacky religious cult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then he becomes a Jedi when he already is old enough to kind of have his own thoughts and his own views of certain ways of the world. And then he becomes this evil entity of darkness. And that still struggles. And that's what the Emperor is like, you lost the Death Star, which if anyone's seen the Robot Chicken episodes, the $1 billion industry just gone. You literally lost it to two of them. Yeah,
well,
in the future
actually,
you lose the second one.
Yeah, just the one now. Yeah.
You know, you said you were going to go turn your son, and we're going to have this kind of family lineage of evil Sith lords in our reign. You lost him.
Yeah.
You disobeyed me. You're still thinking about Padme, which that was also the heartbreaking part, where he's just like, she's gone. Stop looking for answers, as he's torturing this guy.
He's kind of like your bro. Like when you break up with a girl and like you're thinking of her, and your man's like, "Yo, stop thinking about her, man. She ain't worth it. She ain't worth it."
But in the worst way. Like it's not just like a girlfriend. It's like, hey, I lost my wife and thought I lost my kids because she's dead, and I might have choked her out and killed her.
Hey, like, you're ripped now. It's worth it.
Your drunk friend who's just there.
Don't worry about it, man. Now you can go beat up anybody. Like, come on, Vader. Yo. Guys, that is our review of Darth Vader 1 through 6, The Dark Heart of the Sith. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. We want to hear your thoughts down below on this arc. If you've already read it, what it means to you. Or if you haven't read it yet and now you just learned the story, what do you think is going to happen in the next arc?
And guys, thank you so much for watching. Please give us a thumbs up. Like, really helps the channel out a lot. If you're new, make sure to subscribe. and get notifications on, because you don't want to miss any more videos like this, which we will continue down the line with more information. Also, really apologize for the sound in here. Moving to a new studio, couple weeks, going to be great. Definitely want to check that out, and we'll see you next time.
Before you go, you're going to see our icon here in another video. Make sure you subscribe and check out some more videos that you might like. Stay tuned.